Chua, welcome to the show. Thanks for making time to do this. So let's begin. What are your strengths and weaknesses in the film industry? So what do you find easy and what do you find more challenging?
In terms of coming up with ideas, I think generally for films and for it's easy to come up with ideas. It's easy to basically have a lot of dreams about what you want to do and everything. But I think what is very difficult basically is to execute your idea. And a lot of times execution also means that whether it's going to be a high-end execution or a low-end execution. So there's a lot of finesse in different types of production or filmmaking process. So I think so it really depends on where you want to go.
What do you love most about filmmaking?
For filmmaking, I think what is very interesting about filmmaking is that you are able to change the world with your ideas. That happens when I was really young. So the films that really affects me or change my whole life perspective, it's a film called Dead Poet Society. Yeah, so it teaches me basically to seize the day, yeah, and carpe diem.
Seize the day, gather ye rosebud while ye may.
And so that is something which I learned, to live life with passion. So that's one of the earlier ones. And the other one is called Dances with Wolves by Kevin Costner. That film actually really brings me very close to nature. So that is something which I appreciate about film. I feel that film has a way to change people, change your perspective, change your life, change the way you think, even change the way you live.
So of all the projects that you've been involved in, which of these projects are you most proud of?
Yeah, so there are a couple of projects that which I really enjoy doing. One of them is actually called Beyond the Dot. So Beyond the Dot is a documentary series about Singaporeans who has been successful overseas. So they're not exactly businesses, but they're individuals like lawyers, artists, filmmakers, photographers. In their own rights. So they have ventured out of Singapore because Singapore is such a small country, we call it a little dot. So I had a lot of fun just flying all over the world, meeting people, meeting fellow Singaporeans, seeing what they do and seeing how they are affecting the world in their own ways. So it was a very interesting experience for me.
So to be a good film, what do you think is the most important aspect it needs?
So again, it depends on whether it's a documentary film or whether it's a narrative film. So I think different types of film have different trajectory or in terms of. But generally, I think if you kind of follow the hero's journey, it will come out something very interesting. So you have a protagonist, and you need to have some conflict, and then he needs to resolve a conflict, and he needs to die, he needs to resurrect, and then eventually he needs to ride off into the sunset.
So for young filmmakers and beginning filmmakers, what is the one biggest piece of advice you would give, or if there are multiple?
Story is king. Content is king. So don't worry too much about techniques. Don't worry too much about what camera to use, what format. I mean, you could be shooting on a handphone, you could be shooting on very expensive RED cameras. So I think those are to me inconsequential. I think what's very important is the story. That is the content that comes to me comes from your heart. What you want to say, what message you want to bring to people. I think that's the first thing. And the other thing is look for people who can help you. Yeah, so filmmaking is a very collaborative process. Recently, obviously, cameras are getting smaller. You could shoot on handphones. You could shoot. So it has become very individualistic. Yeah, so people has started vlogging on their own and all that. But actually, the fun part about filmmaking that it is a very collaborative process. You have your actors, you have your interviewees, you have your interviewer, you have your lighting guy, you have your camera guy, you have your sound guy. So everything can be very collaborative, and when it's collaborative, you actually access a more collective consciousness, and your film becomes better.
All right. So the last question. So being a director, as you are, in some projects, it's definitely a very stressful job. What do you think are some of the pieces of advice you would give to people about getting rid of that stress and trying to make this experience more fun?
Not so sure about how I deal with stress, but I think first of all, I think you have to internalize. To me, you have to internalize your role as a director. I think that's important. So we are always taught in film school that director is God. So God as in not the big God, but God in your own way, as in you need to basically know everything. You need to be able to control the weather. You need to be able to predict everything. So I think first of all is to be able to internalize your role as a director, that you are able to basically provide answers to everybody that asks you questions. You're able to provide a direction. You are able to be a father, a mother, to everybody. So being a director is not easy, but at the same time, it needs some sort of a mindset. I think first of all, just have a mindset that you are the director and you are in control of everything.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the show, and we really appreciate you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.